is now Hurricane Melissa a few months ago. But this capacity of doing and getting up again, it's absolutely not seen elsewhere. The European Union is accompanying, is assisting the government of Jamaica in different projects in the field of digitalization. One of them is the Digital Jamaica plan, in which education is especially focused. The government is installing broadband in 1,200 schools in the country. It's primary and secondary schools in the country. And, thank you. But it's the government who is doing that. We are just assisting and providing some financial assistance to that, but is led and done by the government. Mainly the Ministry of Education is especially active in this. Also integrating digitalization in the curricula of educators, of teachers, but also having in some regional Caribbean and continental programs, because digitalization is not something that has to be addressed just at national level, because you know, if there is something for which there is no borders, is for the digital universe. When it comes to digital applications trade, digital trade, then security, or what we call cyber security, is also an important element to be sure that everything that we do in this virtual world is safe and is secure. I will not extend anymore, because there are other people here who will say most interesting things that I will. But just to encourage, because you are those who started since the very beginning in this, already immersed in this world where digitalization is absolutely at the center of everything. And let's move ahead and don't miss this train, because it's absolutely essential for our day-to-day life. Thank you very much to all of you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rees. Of course, the digital space has no boundaries. So we've just heard from the EU perspective. Now we're going to hear a regional perspective. And I'm really excited to have with us participating this evening a particular lady who is the only resident High Commissioner in Jamaica across the entire Caribbean. And so this being a regional institution, it's very important for us to have her and for her to participate with us. Are there any, can you guess which country I'm talking about? Are there any Trinis in the house? Oh, I heard one little woo. All right. Everybody's got, I was just about to say it, Minister. They're not here. We know why they're not here. All right. So, but at this time, it is my honor to invite Her Excellency Deborah Thomas Felix, High Commissioner for Trinidad and Tobago, to Jamaica.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Dr. the Honorable Andrew Wheatley, members of the G2K group organization and the Mona Campus Youth League, and all other protocols accepted and respected. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring warm greetings on behalf of the government of Trinidad and Tobago and the people of Trinidad and Tobago. It is indeed a pleasure to join you as you explore the timely and important theme, Beyond Bureaucracy, Jamaica's Resilience for the Digital Age. Across the Caribbean, and indeed we can say across the world, resilience today extends beyond our response to natural disasters or economic challenges. It includes our ability to modernize governance, strengthen institutions, and harness digital transformation in ways that create opportunity and inclusion for all our citizens. Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago, like most small island developing states, must continuously innovate to remain competitive. The digital age brings efficiency, transparency, adaptability, and above all, leadership that is forward-looking and citizen-centered. I wish to commend Generation 2000 and the Mona Campus Youth League for convening this very important and forward-thinking dialogue. By bringing together youth leadership, private enterprise, and policy discussions, and indeed you have brought your Prime Minister here on your first discussion, you are helping to shape a generation that understands both governance and innovation. Regional collaboration will be essential as we move forward by sharing best practices and strengthening partnerships across the Caribbean. We can ensure that our institutions are not only merely reactive, but resilient and transformative. And these are my very short greetings. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to participate, and I wish you the very best, and may God be with you as you continue this venture in agriculture and all the other parts of your program. I thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, High Commissioner, for your kind words. Before I go any further, Prime Minister and Minister Wheatley, I just want to acknowledge and have them identify themselves wherever they are. The members of the Mona Campus Youth League, the G2K chapter on campus, the members of Generation Technology, Gentech from UTech, and the League of Maritime Leaders from CMU. Where are you? Please make some noise so the Prime Minister can know where you are. So we have a broad spectrum of programs and disciplines here represented as well, Prime Minister. So at this time, I would like to invite Ms. Alia Rogers. Here you are, Alia. Ms. Alia Rogers to introduce our guest speaker.
Good night. I respectfully observe all protocols. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce the Honorable Dr. Andrew Wheatley, a distinguished Jamaican leader whose career reflects a dynamic blend of scientific expertise and public service. Dr. Wheatley is a trained scientist, academic, and seasoned public servant who has consistently demonstrated a strong commitment to national development. His academic background in the sciences has equipped him with analytical and problem-solving skills that have significantly shaped his approach to governance and policy leadership. He serves as a senior member of the Jamaican Labour Party, where he holds the important role of Deputy General Secretary. In addition, he represents the people of South Central St. Catherine as their Member of Parliament. A responsibility he carries with dedication and focus. Dr. Wheatley currently serves as a minister without portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister, with responsibility for science, technology, and special projects. In this capacity, he plays a key role in advancing Jamaica's modernization agenda. particularly in areas critical to innovation, digital transformation, and national resilience. Dr. Wheatley's approach to governance is marked by a commitment to results and accountability. Judge me on my performance, he stated, emphasizing his focus on delivery and tangible. His unique background as both a research scientist and a political leader positions him to bridge the gap between academic innovation and practical policy implementation. Through his ministry, Dr. Wheatley aims to create an ecosystem where scientific research, technological innovation, and special projects coverage to accelerate Jamaica's development and improve the quality of life for all Jamaicans. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming the Honorable Dr. Andrew Wheatley.
Thank you very much, Aliyah. Mr. Master of Ceremonies, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister, members of the Diplomatic Corps, the leadership of the Faculty of Law here at the University of the West Indies, the President and the Executive of Generation 2000, young professionals, university students, Jamaica's future leaders, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Let me start by commending Generation 2000 for choosing a theme that is real. It is not a theme that is abstract. Beyond bureaucracy, Jamaica's resilience for the digital age. Prime Minister, it would appear that this is indeed a topical subject because the level of interest that we have seen over the last couple of days when it became public that this event was going to be held here, the level of interest that we have seen on a number of different platforms speaks to the reality that we are living in, that Jamaicans are appreciative of the digital age, the digital transformation that is upon us, and how it will impact our lives. So, this is not a topic for policy experts alone. If you look around in this room, you see a lot of young people, the future of our country. The bureaucracy that we are talking about today is something that I believe everyone in this room can appreciate. It is something that we currently live. It is something that we have to decide today if we are going to inherit it and tolerate it, or it is something that we are willing to work towards redesigning and defeat. The Prime Minister, of course, will speak to the larger national direction, the urgency of reform, and the drive for faster development. My job this afternoon, in my few minutes with you, is to take you into the engine room, to talk about the tools, how science, technology, and innovation, and especially artificial intelligence, can reduce friction, speed up delivery, and build a government that a generation raised on smartphones and instant information deserves. Ladies and gentlemen, before going further, we must be honest, because this conversation can get very emotional. Not all bureaucracy is bad. Some bureaucracy protects us. The rules that ensure the food you eat is safe, the building codes that keep structures standing after a storm, the procurement rules that protect your tax dollars, that is good bureaucracy. That is the scaffolding of a functioning state. Without it, you don't get less government, you get more chaos. What we are confronting is bad bureaucracy. And you know what it looks like because many of you have lived it, especially those of us who are coming up into society, having gone through high school and coming through the universities. It is a graduate who waits months for a process that should take days. It is the entrepreneur who can't register and operationalize a business without bouncing between offices and repeating the same information. It is the citizen who cannot tell whether their application is processing, progressing, or simply just existing in this space. And when bad bureaucracy becomes normal, it does something dangerous, ladies and gentlemen. It taxes ambition. And that is something that we cannot curtail as a society, where we limit the ambition of our young people. It trains people to expect delay when you have bad bureaucracy. It quietly tells bright young Jamaicans it's easier not to try. And we cannot afford that. We cannot build a resilient Jamaica on that premise. You know, it is easy to get frustrated. The truth is that countries that move faster while staying fair and accountable attract investments, scale businesses quicker, respond to shocks better, and build trust in institutions are those countries that ensure that bureaucracy doesn't become a limiting factor. Countries that move slowly becomes expensive to operate in, and that is just the reality. Ladies and gentlemen, in the digital age, there's another truth that we must face. When we digitize government, we also increase the target area for criminals, cyber criminals. And so the conversation about speed cannot be separated from the conversation about trust. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, our modernization effort has to do two things at once. Make services faster and simpler, and make systems safer and harder for those who would want to abuse it, get a chance to do so. And so, this is where science, technology, and innovation are not nice to have. They are the foundation of resilience. I'm sure we have a number of scientists in this room that can readily identify with that statement that science, technology, and innovations are fundamental to resilience. Let me ask a simple question. How many of you have used an AI tool in the last 30 days, such as ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Copilot, anything? Prime Minister, clearly we have a society that has started to embrace artificial intelligence, especially our students, where I'm sure you would have utilized AI to complete a task, whether it is to generate a report, to write a thesis. And I hope that you indicate, well, I hope you indicate that, or make sure that there's no plagiarism involved in the whole AI utilization, because you will appreciate that AI would draw information from many sources. And if you should repeat them verbatim, then you find yourself in another problem where plagiarism becomes the order of the day when we check it as supervisors in the system here at UWI to ensure that you don't just copy the things verbatim without fully understanding and appreciating the context and everything else. So clearly, you know, based on the murmurs and the little sort of voice comments that it is clear that you're already living in the AI era. So here's the practical leap, ladies and gentlemen. If AI can help you write, research, plan, code, design, and organize your life, why shouldn't it help Jamaica organize the machinery of government? But let me just be clear that AI is not a magic wand. We have been hearing a lot of talk going around about how revolutionary the AI approach is going to be. It is not a magic wand, ladies and gentlemen. It's a tool, yet a very powerful tool, but it is a tool. And we have to appreciate that it is a tool, and like any other tool, we must manipulate it in such a way that we garner as much positive from it. It's a tool that we cannot allow to just run wild in our society. It's a tool, and we must acknowledge it as a very powerful tool. And like any powerful tool, it can build, or it can break, or destroy. So our approach as a government is very simple. Use technology and AI to preserve the good bureaucracy, fairness, standards, accountability, while eliminating the bad bureaucracy that often cause duplication, delay, and inconsistency, and even more so, frustration among our citizens. Now, let me say that this section is more of a statement, a plain and direct statement, because this is where the upgrade really happens. Yes, AI can shrink backlogs without removing accountability. A huge part of delay is routine checking, such as, is the form complete? Is the document valid? Does it meet stated requirements? AI can help pre-screen applications quickly and consistently, flagging exceptions for human judgment instead of treating every case like a crisis. Public servants don't disappear in this model. They are an important component in this government. What it does is that they get freed up for them to focus on the complicated cases that need expertise and discretion. AI can also kill redundancy. And that is one thing that we can appreciate that fuels bad bureaucracy. Bad bureaucracy feeds on duplication, where different agencies ask you for the same information because systems don't talk to each other. You go to the tax office, and yes, the tax office should have most of our information, your TRN and all of that. But you go to another agency, they ask you for your TRN number. Your TRN just the same. That is duplication because the agencies are not speaking to each other. AI combined with proper data standards and secure integration can reduce repeated requests, match records, flag inconsistencies, and support a tell government wants system. So citizens are not forced to be human couriers moving information from one office to another. That is the reality that we face. One of the initiatives that this government has put forward is NITS, which at its core should reduce that level of duplication and the inconsistencies that we find in the government as it is. We are living in a digital age, and something that I believe AI will help us to realize is living in the current age. It will make government services feel like what it is, 2026 or even 2028, and not 1996 or 1998. The truth is that young people don't expect to disappear into a process for weeks. It is like when they go on Netflix. If they see that it is taking so much time to move from 0 to 100, something is wrong with the internet. Something is wrong with the connectivity, because we anticipate and expect that once you press the remote to select a movie, that it should appear instantaneously. We get very much frustrated when we see the things pooling or appears to be connecting. That is the reality of the age that we are living in. The expectation of our people that the process should be at speed. AI, ladies and gentlemen, can support plain language guidance, 24/7 service support, smarter routing, faster triage, and clearer status updates. And something as simple as transparency, being able to see where your application is in a process and what is next, cuts frustration, reduces rumors, and reduces the temptation for informal workarounds. Another important component of AI is that it can make government more outcome sensitive. One of the most powerful, useful uses of AI is pattern detection, spotting bottlenecks, predicting backlogs, and highlighting where decisions slow down. That is how we utilize the technology. That allows leadership to manage performance in real time instead of discovering problems after citizens have already suffered through them. AI must never, ladies and gentlemen, become automated unfairness. This is something that is non-negotiable. If AI touches public decisions, it must be governed. It must be auditable. It must be appealable. It must be secured. Speed must never come at the cost of rights. Otherwise, we don't fix bureaucracy. We just replace an old maze with a new black box. And that is why your government has moved to establish a national AI task force. Because the truth is, Jamaica does not need an AI hype. We don't need that. Jamaica needs AI governance. The mandate is very straightforward. Help Jamaica move in the right direction by shaping the policy, standards, and the legislative framework that enables responsible AI adoption. And this is very important, especially in the public sector. So while protecting citizens, safeguarding rights, and reducing the risk of bias, misuse, and insecurity, we create an environment that facilitates us utilizing AI as a tool for innovation. Unleashing that thing that we keep referring to over the years, the innovative capacity of our Jamaican citizens. AI should be used as a tool that facilitates that. It must not be seen as a tool that will inhibit us. It is a tool that we must embrace because it is upon us. It's a tool, ladies and gentlemen, that will cause us to retool our citizens, but it's a tool that will make us unleash our innovative capacity. So, by establishing the AI task force, we are very deliberate. We are not building an AI future by accident. We are building it on purpose. AI is not the replacement for reform. AI is the accelerator of reform, good reform. But only when we have the guardrails. And that is why legislation is very important. And that's why the policy is such an important component. so that we don't run wild in this space. It must be governed in such a way that we maximize the benefits, we protect our citizens in the whole process. Digital government needs digital trust. Data protection, cyber security are two important components, especially in this digital space. We cannot expect that all actors in this field will be fair or honest. The truth is that we have to put in place the necessary policies and safeguards as a government to protect our citizens while we encourage them to embrace technology such as AI. And that is why recently we amended the Cybercrimes Act to ensure that the legislation is on par with today's realities. It is not something that is static. It is a dynamic space. And as such, we are committed to amend the legislation where needed to ensure that we keep abreast of the advances that are taking place around us. The more digital government becomes, the more valuable government data becomes, and the more attractive government system becomes to attackers. So, ladies and gentlemen, if we are serious about taming bureaucracy with technology, we must be equally serious about digital trust. And what that means is that data protection that is real in practice, not just on paper. We have to embrace that data privacy and data protection is part and parcel of embracing technology. In fact, a number of jurisdictions will not facilitate the sharing of sensitive or personal data of their citizens unless we have proper data privacy and protection legislation to protect them. Jamaica as a society rely heavily on tourism. And some of our tourists come from the European Union, and they have a very serious data protection legislation or policy where countries or entities that treat with the information for their citizens, they must have at least basic standards in place that protects how their data is treated and how it is shared. And so data privacy, data protection is very important. I'm sure if we ask anyone in this room how you feel about your data being stored, you will ask the question, how is it being protected? You are very much conscious and sensitive that you do not want your data to just be out there. And so it is a very important component of transforming our society into a digital society. What it also means is that cybersecurity design cybersecurity must be designed into our system from day one. It cannot be adequate to provide confidence so that our citizens feel very safe in this space. So we have to ensure that we don't take a patched approach to this. Ladies and gentlemen, as we modernize services and adopt AI, we must harden our platforms, train our people, modernize incident response, and ensure the public can trust that their data is protected and their government systems are resilient. The young people here, this generation, I want to speak directly to you, the students and the young professionals. You are the first generation in Jamaica that treats digital tools as natural. Just like electricity, just like water coming out of a tap. And that gives you an advantage. You don't romanticize slow systems. you can see inefficiently instantly. So I'll give you a mission you can actually act on. Make the Jamaican state easier to use without making it easier to abuse. I will say it again. Make the Jamaican state easier to use without making it easier to abuse. And what that means is building systems that are fast and fairer, more automated and more accountable, more connected and more secure. We need your talent, whether it's in GovTech, whether it's in cybersecurity, in data, in production design, in policy and research, whether it is in AI governance, whether it's in entrepreneurship. Because the Jamaica we're building isn't just a Jamaica that is digital, it is a Jamaica that is resilient. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Wheatley. I think all of us in this room appreciate the fact that the government is fully seized of the pain that we feel from bad bureaucracy. While bureaucracy must serve us, it can sometimes be bad. And the fact that the government understands our pain and is moving to remedy a lot of the problems should give us a lot of hope. And so later, when we have questions on your program for this evening, at the end we will have questions. Hopefully we will have some more engagement on some proposals, perhaps, for some of the pain points that our Prime Minister and our Minister are here to level with us on this evening. Thank you very much again, Minister. At this point, I would love to invite Mr. Jamal Hall. He is the chair of the Mona Campus Youth League, and so a warm welcome for him. As our host this evening, the duty and honor falls to him to introduce the Prime Minister.
Thank you so much, Sir Harris. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The protocols have already been observed, but it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge the presence of our principal, Dr. Denzel Williams. Thank you, sir, for coming. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I was in a lecture PM this morning, and my lecturer was saying to me, you guys hear that the Prime Minister is coming on campus? And I said, yeah, man, we hear. And she was like, I wonder what's keeping. I wonder which election is coming, because that's normally when we see politicians. But I was, little did she know I was affiliated with the event, but much more that I would be introducing him this evening. And it is my distinct pleasure to introduce one of Jamaica's best prime ministers. After Hurricane Melissa, the Prime Minister did promise that Jamaica would build back smarter and that youth would play an essential role in that process. And today, I'm happy to announce that, I'm happy to declare that he is here to fulfill on that promise. He's a distinguished alumnus of the University of the West Indies, where he earned a Bachelor of Science in Management Studies and a Master of Science in Development Studies. But it seems that 2 degrees just weren't enough.
What's his name?
So he then went on to Northeastern University, where he earned a doctorate of law and policy. Now in his second consecutive term, Dr. Holness is leading with a clear agenda, a technologically advanced, fiscally responsible, infrastructure-driven, and resilient country. Under his administration, this country has seen a record low unemployment rate, a 31-year-old low murder rate, and introduced innovative fiscal safeguards, including Jamaica's first catastrophe bond for disaster recovery. Now it's very clear he's been busy, but perhaps most striking is his insistence that we should refuse to sit in the stands while the world changes. He has been clear Jamaica must not be a spectator. And after missing previous waves of global transformation, this time around, we are positioned not to fear AI, but to embrace it. And I don't mean to use ChatGPT to do the exams. To expand training, strengthen skills, and move our people toward higher order tasks and, of course, higher order pay. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand and join me in welcoming a leader who believes Jamaica can compete, innovate, and lead in the digital age, Chancellor, Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Prime Minister of Jamaica.
Thank you very much, Jamal. Thank you very much. Please. I promise you I will be brief. That's not a political promise. I know the disparaging remark. I wonder what election keeping while the Prime Minister is here. I will have you know that I was a student here, and I spent quite a bit of time at the University of the West Indies. I actually did my master's degree here, and who knows, maybe if the principal will have me at some much later stage, I might very well walk up and down these hallowed halls. Until such time, please permit me to acknowledge all the dignified people here, with special acknowledgement to the excellencies of the diplomatic corps who are with us. The topic is one that I find very interesting and very stimulating. And so I dispense with the notion that this large crowd was gathered here to see me. No, you are here because of particular interest in this topic, beyond bureaucracy. So profound. Jamaica's resilience for the digital age. Because it begs the question, can we go beyond bureaucracy? I've always thought that bureaucracy is ubiquitous, immanent, inescapable. It's like the air. It's all around us. So let me begin with a paradox. The very system that made modern civilization possible is now, in many parts of the world, slowing its progress. That system is bureaucracy. For centuries, bureaucracy has been the backbone of order, fairness, and predictability in governance. But in the digital age, we must ask a bold question. Is our bureaucracy enabling or restraining growth? And that's a question that it is not rhetorical. I encourage each and every one of you as young Jamaicans to think on this question and answer it for yourselves. So tonight I want to explore how Jamaica can move beyond bureaucracy. Not by transforming it, well, not by destroying it, but by transforming it. What is bureaucracy? The German sociologist Max Weber described bureaucracy as the most rational and efficient form of large-scale organization ever devised. Weber outlined its defining features: clear rules, hierarchical authority, the vision How do we introduce administration, the principles of private sector management? How do we reform executive authority to take it out of the civil service and clothe it with executive power, pretty much like what happens in the private sector? All kinds of iterations, all kinds of strategies have been employed. I recently came across a clip of the German Chancellor, and I acknowledge the representative from the EU delegation here. And I found it deeply ironic that Germany, the birthplace of Weber, is now confronting bureaucratic excess. Olaf Scholz, Chancellor of Germany, recently announced measures to reduce administrative burdens and accelerate approvals. In outlining reforms, he emphasized the need to cut red tape and set clear timelines for administrative approvals, including the principle that if authorities fail to decide within a defined period, approvals could be granted automatically. Now, by the way, this is not new. Prime Minister Bruce Golding announced this in 2009, 2010, thereabout, as a means of increasing the speed of approvals. Of course, it wasn't done. And I thought I would just play it for you.
China builds the world's largest solar farms within a few months.
Let me back it up a little bit.
China builds the world's largest solar farms within a few months. In the EU, it takes years just for the project to get approved. Therefore, I propose to implement a fundamental principle in most permitting processes. Any project that is not treated within a few weeks or months will be regarded approved automatically. This is what our companies and our citizens
So I thought I would raise that because sometimes the discourse in Jamaica, it's very insular in a sense. It just focuses on what is happening in Jamaica and not recognizing that many of these challenges are global, and Jamaica is situated within these global challenges. So I'm particularly happy to be addressing this audience because the subject matter requires that our young Jamaicans who are about to assume leadership roles in the country appreciate this dynamic and appreciate the global scale of the problem. I say this because the people who created the bureaucracy cannot be the people to fix the bureaucracy. It has to be a new generation of thinkers. We went through a period in Jamaica's history where all we were taught is that politicians are corrupt, systems are weak, and therefore we have to layer on a very thick bureaucracy. Today, we pay the price for a dead bureaucracy. Let me delve a little bit deeper into this. There is a conflict between process and outcome. Natural tension. And it is at the heart of the issue. No one wants to undermine systems. Corruption is a serious threat to growth, social order, and social equity. But bureaucracy, if it is not smart, if it is not agile, will create the conditions under which corruption will thrive. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Corruption and inefficiency are the two different sides of the same coin. And whenever there is inefficiency, there is corruption. It is a fatal error to believe that layering on new pieces of laws and legislation and making them tighter and stronger, that is going to stop corruption. The lessons to be learned is that we must resolve the conflict between process and outcome. And how can this be resolved? Well, you know, if you think about it, the bureaucratic mindset seeks to protect process, protect jobs, protect friendships, don't disclose, conceal inefficiency, the squaddy mentality, the clique mentality, as bureaucracy. A delivery mindset, the mindset to say, let me get things done, doesn't do that. I want to see things done. I want to see the objective attained. That's culture. There is very little that can be done to legislate that. We have to get you thinking differently so that when you come into the public service, you come with an outcomes mindset. Avoid risk. That's the bureaucratic mindset. I am not going to do anything that is going to put my job at risk. So my boss tells me that if the I is not dotted, I'm setting it back. And the boss looks at the law and said they must submit their applications with everything correct. Well, my interpretation of correct means that every word must be spelled correctly. We need the growth mindset where persons understand how to manage risk. There's no riskless activity. You have to manage risk. Then, as I said before, follow the rule versus achieve the results. Then, bureaucracies like to expand control. It's just almost natural. They see an area that is unregulated or not within their domain of control, and all of a sudden, you know, the next day, they find some way to bring it under some control. Whereas we want a mindset that seeks to enable opportunity. And then The trick with bureaucracy in terms of its bureaucratic mindset is that the bureaucracy wants to measure everything. They want to measure activity. They want to measure effort. But bureaucracies scarcely ever measure results. And that's the kind of public system that we need to build in Jamaica. A public system, a bureaucracy that is going to measure results. Or can you imagine a system that pays based on your achievements? I'm just speaking theoretically, of course. But could you imagine that? So, we want a system that measures impact. That's really what I want you to start to think about. How does your public bureaucracy deliver impact? Change, real change. So, process is important. Putting in the laws are important. But process is a means. It is not the end. When processes become the objective, productivity declines. Now, I want to place in your mind a concept that when systems are dense, when they are overbearing with rules, when they become complicated, now let me be clear, in today's world, we must have complex systems. Complex systems. But we don't need to have complicated systems. And that is what has happened, by and large, to bureaucracy. There are many compliance issues that we have to address, but compliance is done in a complicated way. And I'm going to speak a little bit more about how could we overcome this. But I want to put in your mind a concept very quickly. And that concept is that efficiency is a resource. Efficiency is a resource like oil, like our geographic location, like our labor. Efficiency is a resource. And countries that have managed to grow and have managed to grow without natural resources, oil or minerals, they have done so by becoming super efficient. I give you two examples. Singapore and Jamaica in the 1960s had similar GDP. South Korea was poorer than Jamaica in the 1960s. South Korea today for just over a $500 billion economy. What resource did they have? I need you to think about that. So they had administrative efficiency. They had predictable regulations. The stories told of one of Jamaica's great entrepreneurs who was doing business in the 70s, and he went to open a factory in Singapore. And when he went to open the factory, he was met by someone from the ministry of, their ministry equivalent of JAMPRO, and took them to a site and said to him, here is where you will locate your factory. It is a plug and play operation. Here is the form. Fill this out. We will give in 7 days. And he said when he went through the form, he recognized that this form was taken from the Jamaican investment promotion documents that we had developed. Of course, Lee Kuan Yew had visited Jamaica on a few occasions to see what we were doing. So they managed to perfect it. They managed to develop administrative efficiency, predictable regulations, fast approvals. More than that, they digitized and digitalized their government rapidly, while we are arguing about some conspiracy theory nonsense. They invested heavily in digitalizing their economy and their public administration. And you know what else they did? They made sure that government served industry, private enterprise, and businesses. They didn't adopt the concept that there was tension between business, private enterprise, and government. They didn't take the view that government is to penalize private sector. They acknowledge that if they are to create wealth, they need their private sector. And they work in lockstep, hand in hand. But in Jamaica, sometimes, you know, we went through a period where we made entrepreneurs, people who wanted to invest, we made them the villains. So, if we are to survive in this new world, and survive beyond fiscal discipline, meaning managing our taxes so that we don't have to do too much taxation, so we manage our expenditure, keep it within our revenues, keep down our debt, and we took 10 years to get to that stage to manage that. But that cannot carry us to give sustained increase in wages. That cannot carry us to fix all the potholed roads we have. That cannot carry us to put more beds and doctors in the hospitals. Fiscal discipline has given us some dividends which we have used to carry us this far in our transformation. But if we are to sustain and move to the next level, we must develop the resource of efficiency. So, for a small island developing state like Jamaica, efficiency is not a byproduct of growth, it is a driver of growth. We cannot compete on size, no. We cannot compete on scale, maybe not. But we must compete on speed. We must compete on clarity. we must compete on efficiency. It is a travesty that we have the fastest human beings on earth, but we are amongst the slowest in the speed of doing business, the speed of innovation, the speed of approvals and permitting, the speed of getting things done. So yes, efficiency is a resource in and of itself that we must develop. Now, I am not here to propose a world without bureaucracy. A world without bureaucracy would be chaos. Corruption would be blatant. Negligence would be blatant. Lack of standards would be blatant. But I am here to propose a transformation of our bureaucracy to make it more efficient so it eliminates the possibility of corruption. A bureaucracy, because, you know, the funny thing is that a part of the greatest corruption that we face as a people, you know, is the waste of resources. And I could go through a litany of all kinds of wastage in public financing, in ministries, you know, sign in and then disappear. Those are costs. Somebody pays for it, or someone doesn't get the service. So, thankfully, there are things we can do. Technology. Let me say this. Mankind has never had access to the volumes of information that mankind has access to today. Never in the history of mankind. But never has ignorance been as high as it is now. It is a paradox. And so governments have to be direct, instrumental, deliberate in ensuring that the technologies that exist are integrated quickly into our systems of managing people and resources, but done so in a way that empowers and enlightens the individual. How can this be done? Well, ChatGPT, Grok, Claude, all kinds of AI is freely available. I could have easily asked AI to write my speech. But I hold the view that technology still has to be managed because, like everything else, there are issues of bias, issues of access and equity and fairness, and there will always be people who would want to use the technology to harm others. So there has to be a referee. So I am not a Luddite. I am not the one who will be sabotaging technology for fear that it may displace me. I believe in technology because ultimately technology is created by the human mind. and we must use the technology for good. So, for example, I couldn't understand why it was that motor vehicle registration had to be an in-person transaction. I just couldn't understand it. And we went through this thing, we discussed it, and you found all kinds of answers being given. Well, it has to be done this way because of this, because of that. In other words, you have the bureaucratic thing. And we decided, listen, there's no reason why the registration should be an in-person. You could do it online, and with the advance in technology for motor vehicles now, you don't need to go and recertify your vehicle for fitness every year. That's a simple restructuring of our system. You know how much time that will save? Providing that people actually use the service. We have literally hundreds of government services that are digitized that you can use online, but not a lot of people use it. Why? One, access. So not everyone has access to serviceable internet. And fear. There's some people who just feel, you know what? I need to count that cash. And I need to see the physical paper. And I know that is going to be a challenge when we move to, for example, digital titles. There are people who just feel 100% safe when your titles is locked up in your safe rather than locked in your phone. But the real estate market and real estate transactions could be amplified multiple times if there were a system of quick titling. But again, there is this cultural hesitation that we need to overcome. And how is that going to be overcome? It's your generation. Technology native. You will have to overcome it. But there is some infrastructure that is needed. We need a pipeline that connects us to the information highway. And that is why your government has made an investment to lay a new subsea cable to bring in faster, more reliable, and more affordable internet. And that is already underway because we recognize that if we are going to truly transform the bureaucracy, we are going to literally have to move all services that can be digitalized onto the digital platform, and all Jamaicans will have to access it that way. Clearly, it will be a process over time, but we're moving in that direction. But how does technology solve this tension between process and outcome? And how does technology help the bureaucracy to become more efficient and less corrupt? Technology is indeed the critical enabler. Now, I don't know how many of you have had to open a bank account. And you literally have to be fighting to put money in the bank. It is a headache. So you may very well have to take a day to say, all right, okay, I'm going to open a bank account. And when you go to open a bank account, you need, several IDs and all kinds of letters to say you are who you are. Identity. Identity is critical to bureaucratic efficiency. because the public demands it. If the government is going to give you $1, you want to know that the dollar that was given as a taxpayer went to someone who deserved it, and it can be accounted for. And so the person needs to be identified. You need to identify. Now, the challenge, of course, is that where you can have multiple identities, or identities can be stolen, or identities can't be verified, bureaucracies, as they do in trying to ensure that nobody gets through, will ask you at each time that you interact with them to provide identity. And that becomes the greatest frustration. But I already came here and I did a transaction with you, and you know who I am. But every time you go to interact with government, there's this process of trying to reestablish identity. That in itself leads to all kinds of possibilities of corruption. There are persons who have 2 or 3 TRNs because the systems that we have, there are duplications. How about if we had one unique, nationally accepted, unrejectable, instantly verified identification that you can use even to verify your identity online? What if you had that? That you only need to just show it, tap, and I'm verified. Suppose we had that. You know, one of the ways in which you can measure growth in an economy is the number of transactions that are taking place. And if you are able to increase the velocity of transactions, then you can get growth, right? So you make your bureaucracy pro-growth by solving the identity issue. But of course, you know, the challenges we went through, because it's a complex issue. Identity has rights. Identity has the issue of protecting people's data and people's right to privacy. So I believe we have gone through all of that. We have solved that, so we are now at the phase where we are ready to implement. So I wanted to see that it is coming together. We are making the investments in the infrastructure to enable technology. Critical infrastructure is that subsea cable to ensure that if one goes down, we have another, that the cables that we have can carry the level of traffic if everybody is using it. But not just that. You know the data consumption in using AI and other technologies. You're going to need to have that critical infrastructure to bring that in. So we are working on that. That's step number 1. Step number 2, we are looking at all our government services to see which we can rapidly digitize. And as I showed you the example of, for example, the car payment, the car registration, forgive me, that you can pay your car registration online and you're good. So we're going to look at all our services, a process that is already in train. And very soon, most, if not all, government services will be digital. Yes? We're solving the bit. We're solving the bit about identity. Now, there's another critical issue that we need to solve, and that is the efficiency of management and decision-making. Management and decision-making can only be improved by data. And one area in which we don't have a lot of data is our spatial management. And we have started that process now. We have a branch, the Spatial Data Management branch, in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development. And we are measuring everything spatial and geographic, because that will help us to manage our planning, manage weather and climate, manage infrastructure, manage maintenance. So for example, you know, you go to an area and you say, I'm trying to find Mass Joe. And the direction is, it's a local GPS. Go up the corner, go up the hill, take the right, look for the big White House. When you should be able to punch that in your GPS, and off you go. But without having a proper national address system, civic address system, and properly mapping your country and having all your spatial data, you can't effectively manage. So we're doing that. That's one piece of it, right? The spatial data. And that showed up quite glaringly in the management of the immediate relief. We just simply didn't have enough spatial data to be able to respond as rapidly as we would like. That won't happen again, because we are making sure we map all the communities. We know how to get them. We know where their coordinates are. Right? That is called GIS, Geographical Information Systems. You see how we're putting it together? So let me stop there, because I think you've got the idea that you've heard me speak about this matter of bureaucracy over and over again. One commentator, after my last presentation, said, but you're the Prime Minister, you should just fix it. Of course we are fixing it. All the things that we have done, I've only listed 4. Right? There are things to do, of course, with how we structure our departments and the agencies and how we organize work, for example. If you notice, we just implemented what was already passed, the Flexi Week program. It's a means of trying to get efficiency in our workplace. So we're doing quite a bit. We haven't put it together in a package as I am trying to do here for the public to understand. The reason is that these issues are politically sensitive. They're culturally sensitive. They touch on issues that are part of the core belief system of Jamaicans and how they see themselves against the rest of the world. If I say the bureaucracy must serve industry, there's somebody who's going to say, then what up to me? It must serve me. Of course the bureaucracy must serve you, but it must also serve industry, because when industries grow, the ability of the government to actually serve you grows. I can tell by the clap that culturally not all of you agree with it. But it is something that we have to confront if we're going to shift to a growth mindset. Just think of it. Just think of it for the last 50 years. Has government really served industries? Have we had a very close alignment to push the development of industries, aside from giving incentives? And has government been able to serve your interests, to fix your roads, your hospitals, and provide all the services you need? The mindset has to change. Why? Because we see industry and business as rich people who have had historical wealth. I am not interested in those. I am interested in you right here in this hall. You are the makers of industry in Jamaica. You will come up to inherit the businesses and run them in Jamaica. We depend on you. You are the private sector. You will make Jamaica grow. This notion that somehow the government can grow the economy and pay you more. It is a nonsense notion. Governments don't grow economies. Businesses grow economies. Government's role is to make sure that the businesses are growing and labor is protected and supported with decent working conditions, the ability to develop their skills and progress, to offer greater services, to compete effectively. That's the role of government. When governments fail to do that, then they give a palliative. They give concessions, they give, all right, we'll give a wage increase here, a wage increase there. But all of that is inflationary. If you look at Jamaica's last 50 years, you will see that as the wage bill increases, it drives the government into fiscal ruin, massive deficits. Eventually, you have to put on more taxes, inflation increases, then you go into another round of wage negotiation. This generation must break this, break that thinking. The only way that you're going to get real wages to increase is by increasing efficiency and productivity. The only way. So, as I close, the last thing I'd say to you, there are many Jamaicans who are seeking to come back home. Yes. And there are those who say, why should I come back home? Because, the poor health care, the roads are bad. I will stay in the United States and struggle. Or I might be doing very well. Why would I come back? But I leave you with this thought. For more than 100 years, Jamaica has been a net supplier of talent to the world. A net supplier of talent, not just labor. A net supplier of our best minds. Of our best doctors, our best scientists, our best teachers, our best nurses. We have supplied them to the world. Whether it is in to build the railway in Panama or the Panama Canal, or to rebuild Europe after the World War. Jamaica, for more than a century, we have been supplying critical talent. If you go across the Caribbean, Cayman, Antigua, wherever, Jamaican populations are significant. It may shock you to learn that since 2018, our birth rate has fallen by 24%. You need to be growing by at least 2.1% to be at replacement. I'm speaking to the most productively fertile generation. And by the response, I know it is a topic that is of serious interest. But bear with me. So we're down 24%. Surprisingly, but counterintuitively, there's a view that, that means, your education budget should be reduced. You don't have to worry about, funding all kinds of social services. but it means less people to support the pension system, which one day you will need a pension system to support you. It means less people available for the labor force. How are we going to grow? If you layer inefficient bureaucracy on a tightening labor pool, what is going to happen is that wages are going to go way up and productivity is going to go way down. It's a serious social issue that we face. So I am very happy when I hear Jamaicans who have migrated saying, you know what, I want to come back home. We need to stimulate a net return, a net gain of talent back into Jamaica. I was really expecting a clap for that, but no, look, I know some of the things that I'm saying challenge your outlook and how you see things. But we can't continue to see things the same way we have seen them for the last 50 years. They have not served us well. We need to have a different thinking. So we have to encourage Jamaicans overseas to come back here and help us to build here. One of the challenges, of course, they talk about hospitals, the roads, but they do also talk about the frustrating bureaucracy. So the good news is we are working to change the bureaucracy. Today is a critical step in that we are going to support you in a mindset shift, in a thinking that we must pursue efficiency in the same way as we pursue security or fiscal stability. We must pursue efficiency. Efficiency is a key driver for growth. And efficiency, it is more than technology. It is more than infrastructure. Efficiency is also culture. And for culture to change, you need a mind shift, a mindset shift. And hopefully today will be the start, tonight will be the start of a shift in mindset for the generation that is coming to take Jamaica to its destiny of a country that is prosperous, the place of choice to live, work, raise families, do business, and retire in paradise. Thank you.
Come to you. I see already there's a line here and we're taking limited questions. So let's start.
Let's just
right
quickly.
over here.
Let's move it quickly.
All right, we're going to be asking all the questions at once. I would say we're taking 4 here and 4 from the other side. Or is it only one side, everybody?
No, we'll move through as quickly as possible.
We're moving through as quickly as possible.
I'm sure people have comments, so we'll move on to comments.
Because it's not only questions, we're sure people also have comments and feedback. So.
Digital transformation is very abstract. So what job opportunities do you think digitization can create for people who can't get the opportunity to go to university or, yeah.
Could I also ask that you direct your question to either PM or Minister Wheatley?
Minister Wheatley.
The question is, how do we incorporate persons who are not able to go to university as we move toward digital transformation? Okay, the truth is that where we are as a society, we will have persons who will not have access to university education. But digitization or digital transformation is not limited to education. And so as a government, we will be embarking on quite a number of public educational exercises to bring people up to date. Of course, some persons will not be fully appreciative or embrace the technology. So, we will still have to offer that alternative. But we believe that in time we would have reached a stage where most, if not all, of our citizens in the future will fully embrace the whole digital transformation that is taking place.
I just wanted to add something very quickly about skills and training. There are some things that technology is not likely to replace in the next decade. We still need plumbers and electricians and carpenters and masons. The skills training component of our human resource development is something that the government has been investing in heavily, but we are going to shift gears very soon to have higher level skills in the same skills area, but the plumber of today is, or of yesterday rather, is not the plumber of today based upon the complexities of modern construction. So we have to upgrade and upskill. Technology is not going to eliminate jobs, meaning technology will not create a net loss of jobs. Yes, some jobs will be lost, but more jobs will be created as a result. And this is nothing new. Throughout the industrial age, through the post-industrial era, the fourth industrial revolution, jobs have changed. People have to get in their minds that they have to change with technology, and the government is there to ensure that there is this transition that can take place. So we will support any Jamaican who wants a skill. This is why we have made Heart free, and we continue to do this. And we have various programs for internship and apprenticeship, which helps our young people to get skills. And I encourage all our young people, even those who are training to be lawyers and doctors and public bureaucrats, get a skill as well.
Thank you. May I also just ask that we just quickly introduce ourselves, names and institutions, if you're attached to one.
Okay, my name is Juvene Holloway, and I'm from the CMU G2K League of Maritime Leaders.
Thanks, Juvene.
All right, good evening, everyone. Nashe Baker, Chapter Chair of CMU G2K. My question is to Prime Minister Holness. Now, many nations struggle because digital reform was policy heavy, but implementation light. How will Jamaica ensure that digital transformation moves beyond strategy documents into everyday student and citizen experience?
I think I addressed those issues. We're building the infrastructure to support mass deployment of technology, that critical infrastructure. which not only includes a subsea cable, but you know that we have a national broadband project which will bring digital services to the last mile, and that is being implemented. But we're looking at other areas of making technology integrated into daily activities. For example, one thing that I must point out, the University of Technology just opened their demonstration lab called MECA. Maybe that's it. IMEC. But you know, it could have very well be MECA. IMEC, where they are now introducing additive manufacturing. So there are many things that are happening. But the biggest commitment we make is to digitize services. So both in terms of converting data that is embedded in physical documents into digital format and the digitalization of processes. So that's what we're committed to.
Hello, my name is Aniska Christie, and I'm a young Jamaican. Prime Minister, you spoke about spatial data. What came to my mind was utilizing EOJ and the Jamaica Post to make sure that we have the addresses for persons. But what other organizations do you believe can be involved in that step to get to spatial data?
A very good observation. Just to be clear, the EOJ and the post office don't have all the addresses in Jamaica. If you look at the voters list, you will see, for example, in my constituency, you will see like 500 names in an area where it just says Bellrock. You literally have to know the community to know where to find the people. That shouldn't be the case in today's day and age. And that is why we have the data, the spatial data management branch, which is doing the kind of GIS work to, first of all, map all parcels and to create a system of digital addresses so that everyone can identify themselves both in terms of their person and in terms of their address.
Hi everyone, good night. My name is Kevin Pinnock. I'm an IBI ambassador. So my question falls in the realm of AI implementation overall in terms of its perspective, since it's mostly American-based or wider context outside of the country itself. How does that implementation look in local context? Because one of the big things is, while the AI tools are great, they don't take into perspective the Jamaican context or even the local perspective.
So quickly, very quickly, I don't know if you've ever spoken to ChatGPT in Patois. It responds to you quite well. The reason being, these large language models literally scrape everything. We don't necessarily have strong protection of IP, so they have access to quite a bit. You know, everything you write in the paper. I use ChatGPT and I see it regurgitates the stuff that I have written. I said, well, it's just telling me what I've already written. What ChatGPT does and all other large language models is they recognize patterns and they pull from all over, which is something that I couldn't do. You couldn't do it. It's just humanly not possible. But it doesn't negate the point that you're making, that there are some biases that can be picked up in ChatGPT or any other large language model if we are not the ones creating it. It's just like biases that will pick up in facial recognition, for example. So what we have done is we have implemented the AI task force to study how to implement AI-based solutions in Jamaica in an ethical way and in a way that promotes development and protects the rights and privacies of citizens. Now, the next step is to literally build out AI labs. These would be spaces with the equipment that would help students who are involved in computer science, computer-aided learning, and so forth, to be able to explore this new world of artificial intelligence and build products around AI that could be useful for Jamaica. So that's the next step that will come out of our AI think tank.
Do you think long term, in terms of data safety and personal privacy, as you mentioned, you use ChatGPT and then it generates something that you said before that's out on the internet. So do you think, as a local context now, how can like the authors locally, the musicians, secure their IP?
I think there are many cases now, including many news organizations overseas who are in various lawsuits with the AI platforms. We are at large to pursue the same, and we should always seek to protect our IP, but we should also remember, having benefited from everyone else's IP, there is a duty as well to contribute to the open source.
Hi, good evening all. Noelle Nichols, I'm UE Mona law student. Prime Minister Holness, my question is about the civil service today and the